All right. Welcome, guys, to the first free live masterclass. Basically, today we're going to be breaking down, I guess, a bit of my journey because this is the first one. So I want to break down a bit of where I came from, how I've sort of got to where I have over the last 12 months, what skills I learned. I know I talk about it a lot in my content, talk about high income skills, and things like that. And a lot of you guys don't even know what that is. So we're going to be breaking down the real fundamentals. And then the further we get through it, sort of break down how I was able to replace my income, leave my job, and make a full-time income from this. So I hope you guys enjoy it. This is something I'm wanting to do, something that I'm wanting to do every week, a few times a month. So yeah, really keen, guys. Yeah, we'll jump into it. So in regards to, I guess, a bit of a backstory for me, for those who haven't followed along the whole journey, I was a carpenter in Melbourne for 4 years. So I started that at the age of 17, dropped out of school to become a carpenter. I know a lot of you guys here who have been following along the journey come from construction backgrounds. So yeah, I was doing that for 4 years, dropped out of school at 17 to start that. And then, by the time I was 21 was when I started, looking into all this. And for me, like it was never like I never like really hated my job. I worked with good people. I enjoyed the work, but when I first got into it, like at the age of 17, in the back of my head, it was like, it was never something I wanted to do long term. It was like never my dream job or anything like that. So um yeah, I sort of just did it just because I didn't know what else to do. I didn't like school or anything like that. And yeah, it was never something like I really wanted to do forever. Then the further that I went through my apprenticeship, the more I began to realize like, I just had no freedom. All I felt like I was doing was work, 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 work. And I remember being in school, like in high school, all I wanted was to just be a grown up and have all this freedom and be able to make my own decisions and, be able to not have to ask your parents to go and do something. And then I got, pushed into the real world when I was still a teenager. And the longer it went on, I was 18, 19, 20. And then when I was 21, I realized like the last 4 years, I just had absolutely no freedom. Like I just work Monday to Friday, get home, be knackered, just eat, go to sleep, do it all again, then get like a few days off on the weekend. And then Sunday would roll around and I'd be back at work again. And it was just like rinse and repeat. I know a lot of you guys can probably relate. And that was just 4 years. And then it really started to get to me. But yeah, like I was saying on the live stream that I did just before this, from the age of like 15 or 16, I always wanted to travel. We didn't do a lot of travel as like a family growing up. And it was just something I always wanted to do. Like, I've always like thought about things that like in the long run, like, like scared of like dying and things like I want to make the most of my life. And I wanted to like experience what the world has to offer. It's always been a big goal of mine, traveling the world and sort of being my own boss, being like successful. It's always been something that's like as I think about before I go to bed. I remember from like the age of 14, 15, 16, I always wanted to be successful. I always wanted to go and travel the world. And obviously, being a carpenter or working by the hour, working 9 to 5, with the way that the economy is going in Australia, and like the more I grew up and matured, the more that I realized it was just my goals, my dreams to travel and be my own boss and things like that. It was never just going to be possible working by the hour because I only made money based off how many hours I could work. So I'd never have that freedom. Like the only way I'd be able to make a sustainable living would be by trading 50 hours of my week, Monday to Friday. So, where I was as a carpenter and where I always wanted to be didn't align. So that's sort of like a backstory of, those last 4 years, and what sort of led up to me finally making a change, realizing that, I feel like a lot of us just accept that this is what everyone has to do. And yeah, I sort of did as well until I sort of reached a breaking point, which was around April last year. So around April last year is when I guess I had a fuck it moment. I had 6 months left in my apprenticeship as a carpenter. And actually, I got dumped by my girlfriend around this time, I was with her for like 3 years. So I'm not sure how many of you guys have had partners or girlfriends or anything like that, but you get pretty comfortable in a relationship. Like that's all you're worried about. Life's great because you've got this person. So then when she left me, I was sort of, at this breaking point. I didn't the goal coming out of school was always to finish the apprenticeship. So I was almost finished that. So I was already like, I was already like, well, what am I going to do after this? Then I lost that girl I was with, which was, hard. That was my first like big relationship. And I was, really like I really hit rock bottom at that point. This was around, I'd say around February, March last year was when all this was going on. I've throughout my apprenticeship, throughout my youth, I've always loved to go out for a drink. I do love the party life. I still do. Can't take the degenerate out of me ever, I don't think. But at this point is like where I for a good few weeks I turned to pretty heavily drinking on weekdays, and that's something I'd never really done. I was just lost and didn't know how to really cope with any of what was going on inside my head. So yeah, that was around February, March last year, where I really probably I'd say it was probably close to like one of the lower points in my life. But after a few weeks of that, I sort of came to a decision where it was like, either settle for this, I just end up being, that old guy that you see on site at 50 or 60 who's had shit go on in his life. So he just deals with it like with alcohol, never takes any risks, never does anything, and pretty much drink my life away and let it destroy my future. Or I could use what was going on in my life. I know, a lot of you guys reach out to me, and it comes from like a place of you want something to change in your life. So use that as fuel to actually make that change. So that's basically the decision. I had two choices, two pathways I could go down, where I either just settle, just be a chippy for the rest of my life, be a little bitch pretty much, or try and make something of myself, use that like the hurt that I was going through to actually fuel me to become a different person, rather than just saying one day. Because as I said, when I was like 14 or 15 years old, um, I'd always I'd always had this vision that one day I'd be successful, one day I'd be doing all these things that I wanted to do. But I was 21 now. So that'd been like 6 or 7 years of me saying that I'd do one thing and not actually taking any actions towards getting there. So obviously now, 12, 13, 14 months later, we went for option two. We used, the shit situation we were in to then later on, go and fuel us for further on down the line. So that sort of brings us to, I guess, now. Just 2 seconds. I just got to accept a few people in. So that sort of brings us to now. Oh, so around April 2024 was when I sort of reached that moment where I was like, chose the pathway to use all the shit that had gone on in my life to fuel me. So as I said before, where I wanted to make money online, I'd been seeing it for probably like 12 months before, I reached this breaking point, never took action on it. I was comfortable with that girl. Thought it was like all too good to be true. Thought I'd be like too dumb to do it. But that's when I sort of realized like I've got these goals, I've got these dreams, I've got these ambitions. But where I am right now as a carpenter working 50 hours a week for $1,000 a week, that's never going to get me there. So where I was, the situation I was in and where I wanted to be didn't align. So I couldn't just keep doing the same thing and expect a different result. So, something needed to change if I wanted that different result. And that's something that was really important to me was starting to achieve my goals. So, I always knew that was my way to the life I wanted. I'd been seeing it it initially came across my TikTok and my Instagram 12 months before I took action, because I always wanted to travel, and that's it just started popping up, and then I saw more and more, and I just never always knew that was like making money from my phone and just from Wi-Fi and things like that was going to be the thing that allowed me to travel and achieve my goals, but I never took action on it for those 12 months because I always said, one day I'll do it. I'll get started one day. I'll get started one day. And I just never took that action until I reached, a pretty dark point in my life, which could have been avoided if I just took action earlier. I was too comfortable. I thought it was too good to be true. And I was, also too skeptical to even, try and get the help that I needed. So with that, this is around, I'd say mid March to early April last year. So I realized that at that point, it was actually me holding me back this whole time. My mindset, my beliefs, I'd always give myself excuses. I'll start next month. Oh, I'm going to be too stupid. I'm not going to be able to figure it out. And when I came to this realization, when I was in that dark spot where I had two options, I was like, I'm the only thing holding me back here. There's no one else. There's nothing. The only thing holding me back from that life that I want is me. So if I kept thinking the same way, nothing would ever change. So at around that point, I had around $20,000 to my name. That money was supposed to go towards, maybe buying a house or, going to travel after my apprenticeship. But then I just started splashing out on different courses. Like first, I just wanted to get rich quick. I just wanted to make $10,000 tomorrow without having to do any work. Lost a lot of money. Thinking that was, because I started watching these like motivational podcasts. You've got to invest in yourself. You've got to take risks. But I was just being stupid. So I spent a lot of that money pretty much on nothing. But like obviously that they were all lessons that I had to learn. Learn them the hard way, yes, but lessons that ultimately got me here now. So when I was spending like money, I've experienced a few different courses and things like that, where you're just like given like a PDF or like a slideshow, and it's like, good luck, here you go. You're gonna be a millionaire. I sort of sat back and reflected on the money I'd lost, why I lost it. And the biggest thing for me was that I actually had no skills. So that was the first thing. And I didn't have anyone to actually help me learn those skills. So I didn't have guidance. I didn't have someone there who was in the position I wanted to be in to actually help guide me down the path and teach me the skills that I needed. So that's around, April 2024 is when I came across high income skills. That's when I also found a mentor and got the guidance that I needed, and that changed the game. So that was around April 2024. Now, when I was like looking around for starting to actually do research before I went and found my mentors to learn the right skills, I started looking for results. So, previously when I'd spend all this money, I was just, yep, here's the card details. Yep, have this money. This is going to make me rich. But then I started like looking at it, I guess, a bit more strategically and who has actually results to back it. So here are a few results that were actually from I think late 2023, early 2024, from a few of the boys who are inside ABC now. So seeing Kai, this guy named Kai Stewart, 18 years old, made 6,000 US dollars in a week, which is around 9,000 or 8,000 Australian dollars at 18. He was working as a Sparky 4 months earlier. My boy Fletch made 5K in a week. Who was, previously he's worked in, manual labor jobs, plumbing, and things like that. And I was even seeing, 16-year-olds here who were 3 days into being into learning like a new skill, making $1,000 days. So that's sort of what, for you guys who are watching this, who are like, you know, how do I like find the right people, find the right guidance, or find people to teach me the right skills? You have to do like research. Don't just stupidly throw money into things thinking it's gonna make you rich overnight, because you'll just lose money doing that. So start to look into stuff a bit more strategically, look for results, and then go from there. So that's pretty much a backstory for me, sort of what I went through for like just prior to actually, starting to see some results. So now I'm just going to run you through, high income skills, what they are, and sort of how it's got me to, I guess, where I am now. So basically what high income skills are, first off, are skills that can generate you a high income if you learn them. So things like sales, marketing, video editing, copywriting, there's heaps out there. The two that I went for, the two that intrigued me the most were sales and marketing. So when I like bought the shitty courses and lost money, I was looking into things like drop shipping, SMMA, and things like that. And although, the stuff I wasn't getting scammed because I was still like receiving something, but I had no skills to actually be successful. They were saying, yep, go and do this. But I didn't know how to sell. I didn't know how to market. With drop shipping, I had no idea. So that's when I really focused on skills. And when I looked at what didn't work in the past, um, I needed to know how to sell, and I needed to know how to market to be able to make, an income online. So that's when I came across sales and marketing, which are basically as well, like they're pretty much like the fundamentals of everything, right? If any business, not just in the online world for the last 100, 200 years, if you don't know how to sell, then sorry, say you're the best sales guy, but you don't know how to market, you don't know how to bring people in, then you're never gonna be successful because you have no one to sell to. But say you're the best guy at marketing, you can, advertise stuff really well, but then you don't know how to sell, you're still not going to make money. So learning those two skills together is, in any business, whether it's like a carpentry business, whether it's like real estate or anything like that, you need both skills to be successful. So say, I stopped working online, I could go and start like a chippy business and be really successful with that, with the skills that I've learned. So that's sort of why I wanted to learn those two high income skills specifically. Um, and then from there, it was all about getting the right guidance. And I sort of want to, I've got these two statistics here. That's what I want to raise awareness to, um, of the power of learning high income skills and where it's actually going to lead over the next 5 years. Because I feel like a lot of people don't see the stats behind it. And a lot of you guys ask me, is this going to be a long-term thing, or, will I make a bit of money and then I'll have to be back at work and things like that. So in regards to the stats, so right now, like the e-learning space is currently in the space, there's 240 billion US dollars. In the next 5 years, that space will be at 840 billion US dollars. So money circulating in the space for people. So obviously, with that, there's a need for appointment setters, closers, digital marketers, affiliate marketers. There's a demand there. There's the stats back it. Now, on top of that, this study here in April 2025, by the year 2030 as well, 90 million jobs will be going remote. So when people ask, is this a long-term thing? The stats are there to back it. So we're going to get into like, what appointment setting is, what closing is, building a personal brand and all that soon. But basically here, like anything in the world, there's supply and there's demand. So the demand is there. There is going to be this much money in the space in 5 years' time. So the only other thing that's going to stop that is the supply. And that's where you come in, where you can learn a skill and be the supply to the demand that's already there, if that makes sense. So there's a lot of money circulating in space. There's going to be, there's millions of dollars to go around. If you take 0.0001% of that $840 billion that's going to be circulating in the space over the next 5 years, no, you're going to be a millionaire, which is crazy to say, I know, but the stats back it. So this is why it's important to actually learn the skills of appointment setting, of closing, and just create or be the supply to the demand that is already there. Because supply and demand's in every business, the same as sales and marketing is in every business. So that's why it's important to actually learn the skills properly. And then, you're going to eat for a lifetime in whatever you do. Now, in regards to actually, obviously you're probably wondering, well, how do I like implement sales and marketing? It's just a word, like sales, like how do I make money from that? So how do you actually implement these skills so that you can make an income from them and, begin to work towards replacing your income, quitting your job? How do you actually make money from sales in the online space or marketing? So, for me, it was really about learning the skills properly and then implementing them into a way to make money as a beginner. So for me, when I was first learning the skill of sales, of marketing, I came from a trade background. So I knew I was a long way still from starting a business. So obviously there's a lot of money here in the space. There's a lot of money here in the space for these business owners who are selling digital products, who, are teaching in fitness niches, in real estate niches, who are successful business people, right? I knew for me, as someone who failed school, I was not going to be a business guy. Maybe, 5 years down the line, I might be, with the skills that I'm learning still. But I knew initially I wasn't going to make money from something like this as a business owner, coming from a trade background, failed school. So that's when I, came across this thing called high ticket sales. So I found a mentor in the high ticket sales space who had been in the decade for over, who had been in the space for over a decade and had run some of the biggest guys' sales teams. So I've got an example here from one of the bigger clients that my mentors have worked with at ABC. So his name's Nathan Nazareth. Basically, Nathan is like a drop shipping e-commerce guy who teaches people drop shipping and e-commerce. So he has a online mentorship that people, invest money into to go and buy his product. So he's like, basically running the business. But obviously, like someone like Nathan with 900,000 followers can't take sales calls. Now, because he's in the high ticket space, his digital product on offer is a high ticket item. So it's over $2,000-$3,000. There needs to be like a salesperson. There needs to be a middleman. It can't just be sold on a website like Stand Store or Shopify or something like that because it's high ticket. So, with the amount of people that will be reaching out to someone like Nathan, he needs people who are logged into his account to reply to those messages and also people to take his sales calls. So when I was, initially finding my mentor, I was also looking at these results as well. So obviously having those connections in the space was another big thing. So, Nathan, I think he went from $30,000 a month until ABC took over the sales team. So ABC trained salespeople up and then put them into his business. So creating a supply to the demand that was there for Nathan, if that makes sense. So that's when I saw that opportunity. I was like, I don't have to worry about any of the business side of things because Nathan does all that. I just have to be the middleman between, a customer and and the business owner. I'm just the middleman there, and I take a commission from that. So that's when I decided to learn appointment setting and remote closing from some of the best in the game. So that's why, I talk about it a lot in my content, how important having a mentor is or guidance or someone who can teach you the skills properly, because then you can get opportunities to work for people like this. So that's how you implement, as a beginner. So for a lot of you guys here who are beginners, that is how you actually implement a high income skill like sales or marketing into something where you don't have to run a business yourself. The business side of things can take care of itself. You can just be the middleman between the business and a customer like this. So that's what leads me to, breaking down each of those skills that I learned over the last 12 months. So appointment setting, closing, and then building my own personal brand, which I'm going to break down soon. But for right now, is there any questions or anything like that? Am I going too quick? Is it too confusing? Is there any way I can help out before we get into the next stage? Don't be afraid to speak up, even if you want to put it into the chat. Let me know. And with that as well, if I would appreciate it if you guys could just chuck a post on your story, just with us all here, with the masterclass, and just tag me in it. If that would be appreciated, because I am running this for you guys for free, so I want to try and get as many people on here as possible. So if you guys could, I'll get the screen up just before we move on. It would be appreciated if you guys can take a photo, tag me in the story, so that we can get more people here on the next one. But yeah, just before we end the session, just chuck something on your story, tagging me, and yeah, cheers. So with that, the first skill that I learned was appointment setting. So, what is appointment setting? I just sort of briefly discussed it with the example of Nathan. Essentially, appointment setting is the first way I made money, the first skill I learned in the sales space. Appointment setting is basically, so, if we use Nathan as the example, people are logged in to Nathan's Instagram account. And obviously, people reaching out to Nathan are people interested in e-com and drop shipping. So essentially, their job is to then be logged into the account, talk to these people who are interested, and then if they're a good fit, they qualify for the product, they qualify and they're serious about learning the skills, then they will then get booked onto a call with the sales guy, with the sales team who will take the call. Because remember, the transaction can't be made over a website because he's working in the high ticket space. That's essentially what appointment setting is. You're setting appointments on behalf of someone else. So why I think this is the perfect stepping stone, while still working a full-time job, is because you can manage this because you're not worrying about the business side of things. So you're just setting appointments. You're typing DMs on your phone. You can do this on Smoker. You can do this on lunch. So that's where, I saw that. I was like, because I was really worried about having to quit my job without, having made any money. And then, I'd be worried about paying bills for the next week. I'd go broke. So I needed something where I could still make money while I was working. Um, that's what appealed about this. So, that's this sort of, brings us back to for my journey around April and May, where I really locked in on just learning the skill. I wasn't trying to land a role. I was just focused on learning the skill to the best of my ability, because in the long run, that's what's going to make me the most money. So for me, what we do in the academy is, you go through the training, you jump on all the coaching calls, and once you do a test towards the end of that to see if you're actually absorbing the skills and you're absorbing the knowledge. You do a test, and then you get certified by the academy as an appointment setter, and then you're ready to go and land a role. So it took me around 6 weeks to go through the training, get my head around it. It was completely new to me. So it did, although 6 weeks doesn't sound like a long time, it did feel like a long time to me. It took me around 6 weeks to get certified as a setter. And then that's when I went and found my first appointment setting role. So I was setting appointments. I landed my first role. I did that through a Facebook group. So for any of you guys who are wanting to land appointment setting roles, the first way I landed my first role was through a Facebook group. So if you go to Facebook and type in like high ticket sales roles, appointment setting roles, anything like that, and join those groups, there's opportunities. There can be opportunities in there. Now, obviously, it helps if you've got training behind you, because you can just show that you've got certified, you've got experience, and you've got training. But for any of you guys who are wanting to go out and land appointment setting roles, that would be, well, that's the first way I landed mine. So I landed that appointment setting role. It was with a day trading mentorship. And it was pretty crazy. Like it was pretty crazy the first couple of days. Like I was like, oh my God, like I've actually landed a role within my first 2 months. But obviously, I guess it was still like a big learning curve. And then I actually had another around that time, around 1 to 2 weeks into landing that first role with the day trading mentorship. I had another opportunity presented to me within the academy from one of the influencers that has worked with the academy. So that's where I actually took that role. It was a better opportunity. Took that role, and then I think the first day on the job I made $70, which I know it seems like nothing, but for me that was probably like one of the biggest milestones, is making my first bit of money. Actually, believing in myself that I could make money online, because it was such a big, mind fuck for me being able to make money from your phone. And I did it. I made $70. And then from there, I made $1,000 in a week, as you see here. So I was around, June, July was when I first saw my first results. I made $1,000 in a week. And I made $2,500 in a week, which, that replaced my weekly income as a carpenter. And then, making $2,500 the next week, that was $4,000 in 2 or 3 weeks. So that replaced my monthly income. And mind you, for all of you guys here who are probably still working and think you don't have time, when people come to me and say, oh, I'm too busy with work, I think, in my opinion, that is an excuse, because I did it. I was working 10 hours a day. I still went to the gym 1 or 2 hours a day. I still had to cook dinner, have a shower, get home. Like that takes another hour. So there was a good 13, 14 hours out of my day where I was still doing, the routinely 9 to 5 stuff, I guess you could say. But I was still able to set appointments on the side of that. Set appointments, book people in, it's a pretty straightforward job. And yeah, the more appointments I was booking in, the better I was actually getting at the skill. I was obviously still learning through the academy and trying to get as best as I could. That actually led to me replacing my monthly income. So that's pretty much like appointment setting in a nutshell. So basically, this is just an example. Say Nathan's drop shipping mentorship, e-commerce mentorship is $10,000. If you set up the appointment, you earn 5% of that $10,000. So that's sort of how it works. Nathan will pay you 5% out of that $10,000, which is like $500 just for setting an appointment. So that's sort of how I started. That's how I made my first bit of money. Did that through appointment setting. Around 6 to 8 weeks in was when I landed my first role. Around 2.5, 3 months in was when I made that $70. And then from the third month to the fourth month is where I replaced my income with just one skill. Didn't have to start a business. I was still working full time. And these are still, appointment setting is still a skill that is going to be transferable like into anything you do in the future as well. So that's appointment setting. That's the first skill that I learned. And then from there, it was time to, well, in the background, sorry, I was learning remote closing. So, which is basically on the other side of the set appointment. So the remote closer is the person who takes that sales call, because there has to be a middleman. There has to be someone who, there has to be someone to, what's the word? There has to be someone to like close the deal. There has to be someone on the phone to make the sale rather than it just being through a website. So that's where in the background I was, I was setting appointments. It was pretty hectic for a bit because I was still working full time, but I was setting appointments. I wanted to go and close. And the reason I wanted to go and close is because you go from 5% commissions to 10. So instead of making $500, if you can close that deal, you get set. So the appointment setter sets it, and then you take the call. That's 10%. So that's $1,000 you can make just for one call. So that was the goal for me. The appointment setting was always a stepping stone. It was always a stepping stone just to get my foot into the space, make my first bit of money. And obviously, like setting an appointment to taking the call is like a pretty similar skill set. Obviously, it's a bit more difficult being on a call, but when you actually like because when you're sending, you have time to think of your responses. But it's a bit more of a difficult skill set, but it's pretty easy to like take it to that next step. So I started learning that. And I've got here, how long did it take from me setting my first deal to closing? So from the time that I set my first deal, made that $70 to close my first deal, it was around three or 4 weeks. So you can see that, for me to land my first appointment setting role, it took around 8 to 10 weeks. But then to go from setting to closing my first deal, it was only 3 weeks. So although closing is like a much more difficult and advanced skill, because I learnt setting and like the fundamentals first, you can really take that next step a lot quicker than like initially when you're just a complete beginner. So once again, I do just want to like touch on like the importance of getting certified um, as a setter, as a closer, just for the long run. You can go and land a setting role 100%, 100%. I'd say go for it. Get as much knowledge, as much skills from different books, from YouTube videos and stuff like that. But like in the long run, if you get trained up properly and learn the skill properly at the beginning, that's what's going to make you money for like a longer time period. So in regards to the journey, back to the journey. So I went from $4,000 to $5,000, replacing my income as an appointment setter around 3 or 4 months in. So this was July going into August last year, to then going to close. And the first week that I actually closed, or the first 2 weeks, I made almost $6,000, as you see here. So I made almost $6,000 in like the first 10 days into August. And I think the 14th of August was when I went and quit my job. So I went from $5,000 for the month, and then for the month of August, I made $15,000 just upskilling from closing. And then, we'll get into the personal branding side of things soon. But you can really see how quickly it can take off if you take the time to learn the skill properly at the beginning. You can go from not making money for the first 3 months like me to then by the fourth month being in a position where you're close to making $15,000 a month. So that's sort of how I took the next step from going from an appointment setter to taking the calls myself. And then from there, sort of doubling the income because you're going from 5 to 10%, and then being in a position to comfortably leave my job around 4 months in, 4.5 months in, was when I handed in my 2 weeks notice and yeah, got out of there. So that's sort of the next skill, which is closing. So they're both like on the sales side of things. So appointment setting, closing, that's where you're learning the high income skill of sales. And now something I also want to touch on with closing as well is like it really is like the art of communication. Like not only will you be able to make money from these skills, but you'll become like a better communicator from that, a better person. Like, for me to be sitting here for, all of you guys speaking like this right now, like when I say this time last year, I could barely string 2 sentences together. That is like an understatement. So this will not only learning this skill will not only make you a lot of money in the long run, but it will also transform like the way you are as a person, your confidence, the way you can conduct yourself and articulate yourself. It is it is a skill that's not only going to make you a lot of money, but like help you out in a lot of other areas in life. I can speak to other business owners and stuff, more confidently and convicted, and it is something that has truly changed my life. And that's not why I wanted to learn sales. I just wanted to make a fuck ton of money. But the more I've learned the skill, the more I've realized how much it's actually changed me as a person and made me a better person and gave me better opportunities to meet new people and make more money, connecting with other people and networking and stuff like that. So they're the first two skills. That's how I pretty much got to a position within 4 or 5 months to be out of my job, making 5, 10, $15,000 a month. And then from there, sorry, not then from there, but all throughout, I was posting content on social media. If you go back to like before I got started, when I was at rock bottom, I was sort of all over the place. And, I'd invested a lot of money, and then I came across, high income skills, and I was like, I just started posting content. I remember the first video I ever posted. I was like, I think I was on the job site, or it might have been in my car or something. And I was like, look, boys, I've just spent all my savings on like 5 different courses. I'm fucking broke. But we're gonna see what happens. I'm giving it one last shot. I'm gonna try getting a mentor because that's what everyone seems to say. Um, let me be your scapegoat. I know a lot of people are skeptical. I'm just going to try this shit out. If it works, it works. And then I just started posting content. But the power of, I guess, a personal brand and similar to like something I feel like not a lot of people are aware of, similar to like, where the space is going, with the $840 billion, 90 million jobs going remote. People don't see the opportunity that's there because they don't do the research. It's pretty much the same thing with building your own personal brand on the internet. Now, I know a lot of you guys don't want to post content. And I do just want to raise awareness to this fact that later on down the line, this is going to be something that is going to take over the internet more and more. So I've got like 4 examples here of someone like The Rock. So The Rock, Dwayne Johnson, he's made millions and millions of dollars as an actor, but he's now creating his own personal brand. Conor McGregor, millions and millions of dollars in the UFC. He's now creating his personal brand. He's got a whiskey. The Rock has a tequila. The Nelk Boys, I'm sure you guys have seen the Nelk Boys. They're creating their own personal brand, and they've got Happy Dad there. Ronaldo, he has made he's probably a billionaire, and he's now posting content on YouTube. So all these top guys see where the economy is shifting, and it's going to be a creator economy. So there's once again that supply and demand there for more and more. Like social media is just getting bigger and bigger, and basically what these guys have done have they've made their money in their own professions, but then they've gone and built a personal brand. And with that personal brand, they can now sell their products. So all these guys are selling physical products like alcohol. I'm not actually sure what Ronaldo's doing, but like you can make a lot of money just of views of YouTube. There's so many ways to make money if you've got a personal brand. So for me, I never knew really the power of creating a personal brand. I just sort of started doing it because I was broken, I was lost, I didn't know what was going on in my life. But I just documented the whole journey on social media to see. I just wanted to see if it worked, and because the thought was like if it did work, it'd be so cool to look back on, and it was cool to look back on. I never wanted a million followers. I never wanted any followers. I just wanted to sort of document it and look back on it. But then on the side of that, with my mentors, they obviously teach sales and marketing. So I also began to learn content creation. Like so the 1, 2, 3 months in, I was actually starting to get better at content and knowing how to build an audience and document a journey like authentically and just be myself and try and show what's possible. So then from there, I think I was around a month in when I'd been posting, then I also got, my mentors were telling me how bigger of an opportunity it is to have your own personal brand with social media. So then, one day, like that was like, that began to be the end goal for me was to one day have my own brand, something like Nathan. Now I still don't have that yet. Obviously, I'm still building. I've still got, I'm still learning these skills every day. I've still got a long way to go. But that's, one day I want to have my own brand. I'm not sure what it might be, a clothing brand. Like there's other boys in the space who have become appointment setters, become closers, and built personal brands. And now, they're not setters or closers anymore, and they've gone and started their own clothing brands, just with the skills they've learned, and they've created a personal brand so they can go and do that. That's sort of the end goal for me right now. I'm pretty happy with the way things are going. But that is like the power of building a personal brand. So around the 4 or 5 months in, where I was about to leave my job, as you see here, I quit my job, and that's where my content really started to take off. So as I said, I never really wanted a big following. But I posted a video just documenting the journey, like holy fuck boys, I've done it. And this video got like almost 1 million views, blew up my following. And at that point is where a lot of people started reaching out to me for help. And I obviously I was just like, I'll try and help you to the best of my ability. I don't know how much it actually will help because I still think I'm just an idiot. Like, I have a lot of like self-doubt about, how smart I am and things like that. But then people started to actually, with the help that I was giving them, they were starting to make a bit of money, and they were starting to, be in a position to leave their jobs. And I know one of the boys, I'm sure he won't mind me saying this, John, he he reached out to me around October. He was out of his job by January, and he called me like crying his eyes out. He was bawling, like thanking me. Oh my God, like you've changed my life. Like, and like I started crying, admittedly. And it was just like this whole thing where there was no better feeling than that for me. That's like where I found the passion for all of this at the minute. Like all of you guys here, like one, like I hope, how many people here? There's 14, 15 of you guys here. I want to be on the phone with you guys in 6 months' time. Fucking, we're both crying. Grown men, if there's women here, we can all just jump on another Zoom call in 6 months and start crying. That's what I want. Because I would like the more money, like obviously when I started making my first, I replaced my income. That was a great feeling. Quit my job. That was a great feeling. Hit my first 10K month. That was a great feeling. But then the money stops like really changing the way you feel because it's just like, it's just a number in your bank account. So I sort of reached a point where, I was still making money. I was making all this money, but it didn't really affect the way I felt. And I was like, oh, well, this is shit. And then, around the same time as where the content took off, and that's where I could see how powerful having a personal brand is, and how much of an impact you can have on people's lives when you do it the right way. So that's and yeah, so I did just want to like raise awareness to that, like what the power of social media is. Like if you think back to 5 years ago where social media was, it's nothing like where it is now. So much bigger, so many more creators, so many more people posting content. So think about it in another 5 years when there's $840 billion in this space. So there is when you can be the face of it all, there's a lot of potential there. But initially for me, I was never going to post content. That's why I wanted to learn how to set and close as well, because you can do that completely anonymously. So, I could still be closing and no one would even know. Like I'd probably would have quit my job and no one would even know what I'm doing. So you can be anonymous, but a lot of people who are a part of the academy I'm a part of, they don't post content until like 6 to 12 months down the line. Once they feel comfortable with it, once they're making money and they want to take it to that next level. So it's just another stepping stone. But that's basically like the power of learning those skills and doing them in a way in which you can still manage it while still working a full-time job. And yeah, this is sort of talking about as well. These interviews are on YouTube if you guys want to go and watch them. But that's actually John there. This is Jacob here. So this is what I was sort of talking about before. There's no better feeling than helping these boys out. Them coming to me. Jacob quit his job a month or two ago. He started back in September, October. He quit his job a month ago because he's learned the skill. He was an appointment setter. He's then like gone up to closing. And now he's starting to post content as well. And it's like it's a crazy feeling, and that's I want nothing. That's why I'm here right now with all of you. But there's no better feeling than helping you guys out. So I hope we can be on interviews and stuff like that soon, and I'll do whatever it takes. I'm not sure. I didn't edit this, by the way. That looks fucking weird. But anyway, sort of summarizing everything up, this has been like more of a, you guys understanding my journey, how I went about it as just like an idiot, a dumb tradie. I just wanted to make this first one really like informative. And then obviously, you guys can give me feedback after this, what you want to see next, what's lacking, and we can go from there. Basically, my advice to you, before we round everything up and go to asking questions, my advice to you guys, first off, is focus on skills and don't overcomplicate it. So a lot of people reach out to me and they're like, "Oh, I'm trying drop shipping. I want to do crypto. I want to do this. I want to do that." I was, this was also me 14, 15 months ago as well, trying a million different things. You get overwhelmed. You don't know where to start. You're trying this, it doesn't work. 2 weeks later, you're trying something else. Just strip it back to the fundamental of every successful business model or business in the real world, and learn the skills you need to be successful with that. So if I wanted to start drop shipping tomorrow, I could confidently say within the next 30, 60 days, I'd be making money from that easily. And, I don't want to come across like a fucking dickhead, but, I could confidently say by taking the time to learn the skills properly first, now later on down the line, they're transferable into anything. I could start up a carpentry business. I could do, anything I'd want really, because I stripped it back, learn the skills. So that would be my first piece of advice to you, is like learn the skills first, and then you can go in any direction what you want. You can start a clothing brand. You can, do whatever you want really. but just you need to learn the skills first. Don't overcomplicate it. Make it simple. I need to learn this skill and this skill. And then from there, we'll cross the next bridge when it comes. Now, the next part is you just have to start. There is no perfect time. I promise you that, if I had started 12 months earlier than when I originally did, a lot of the stuff that I went through when I was in that dark patch in my life, I wouldn't have had to go through. I'd always put it off. I'd always say, I'm going to start when I finish my apprenticeship. I'm going to start when I got a few weeks left in my, like, I'd give myself all these excuses, this perfect time I had in my head. It does never come. It does never come. And I know it probably sounds extremely cliche, but the hardest part really is starting. Once you've started, once you've, just gone for it and you're just laser focused on learning skills, there's nothing else to worry about. There's no, oh, is it going to work out? Oh, this. Once you're just like, all right, today I'm going to start. And then you're just, focused on making your first bit of money. Now, in regards to my experience, a lot of people ask me like, what was the biggest thing that actually got me to the position where I was able to replace my income and start traveling and stuff like that? How did I get there? And the biggest thing, I know we've spoke a lot about skills here, but before any of that, it was the guidance. So having someone to actually show me down the right path, trying to guide me step by step down the exact path that I needed to go down because they've been there and done it themselves. So you really cannot fail when you've got someone who has walked the path themselves if you don't give up. So that was the first thing. And also something that I didn't realize would be, important to me at all was community. So, the saying that goes around, you surround yourself with 5 smokers, you'll be the sixth. You surround yourself with 5 drug addicts, you'll be the sixth. You surround yourself with 5 people making 10, 20, 30, 40, 50K a month, you're going to start making money. So community was a massive thing for me. I started building relationships. All the boys that I travel with now, it's like, I've known them for years because they're all tradies like me. So it's quite cool to sort of see that. But community is everything. Who you surround yourself with, who, you can be on this journey together. You might, join a community or something like that and sort of be at a similar level. And then you guys can start working together. Like when you're working towards something together, you can hold each other accountable. So community was another big thing for me. And pretty much, the last piece of advice is, a lot of people, there is a bad, I guess, rep with the online space. And I get that, I've not been scammed, but I've lost a lot of money for stuff that probably wasn't worth the money that I paid for it. So I get there's a lot of bullshit out there. And as I said, be strategic about it. Keep your wits about you. If you are going to invest money into a mentor or something to try and help you fast track your progress, do it strategically. Look for results. Talk to different people. Do it like that. But really, like, just see what the facts are saying. See where the economy is going. So there is going to be 840 billion US dollars, which for you guys in Australia, that's over $1 trillion over the next 5 years. That's going to be circulating in the e-learning digital product space. That's going to happen. So there is going to be a need, and most of this money is going to come from high ticket digital products because they're the most money. So all you guys really need to do is create that supply, learn a skill so that you can be the supply to the demand that is already there. The opportunity that we have, like in this generation, is crazy. And the more and more, the longer and longer my journey goes on, the more and more I realize how oblivious I was to all of it. Previously when I was just a chippy, the opportunity that is there is crazy. The money's going to be there. The demand is there. All you have to do is take the time to learn a skill, whether it's appointment setting, closing, creating your own personal brand, whatever it is. Take the time to learn that skill, and then you just be the supply to the demand and start from there. And the biggest thing is just remaining consistent. So once you start, just be consistent. I was 3 months, nothing, no results. Although I felt like I was growing and learning new skills, I made no money for 3 months. I remember, my family were in my ear. Oh, you're working all these, you're working, you've probably done like over 100 hours for no money. You can make $40 an hour as a chippy. And, you got to block that stuff out, but just be consistent because you cannot fail with the right people around you if you don't give up. So consistency is everything. And obviously it's hard because you can lose motivation. And that's why a big thing is like building discipline and having a strong reason why you're doing this. So setting out a why and then painting a vision of you achieving that. So every time stuff gets hard, you're not as motivated anymore. You lose that motivation to keep consistent. You always resort back to, the bigger reason why you're trying to do this. That's my advice to you. We're going to be running more of these sessions every week, every couple of weeks. I'd appreciate feedback. I've got questions here. So have any of you got any questions? You can raise your hand. Um, if you press, there's a button you can press to raise your hand. If you guys have any questions at all, don't be afraid to speak up. Obviously, everyone here as well. Like this is a little community here. Everyone here is like-minded. You guys are here for a reason. You've taken 45, 50 minutes out of your day to listen to this. So if you've got any questions, don't be afraid to speak up. It might be uncomfortable to speak up in front of these people, but that's like the first step. Getting uncomfortable, doing something you're not comfortable with, rather than, you know, being stuck in that comfort zone. So any questions, let me know. I'll give it 15 seconds for someone to ask a question. No questions. That is all good. Oh, yep. Go for it, Samra. Sorry, just unmute your mic.
Mhm. Hello.
How you going, brother?
I'm doing good. Mhm. I'm only 16 years old. What is the advice do you
You're cutting out
like?
ahead.
What does it-
I can't hear you, man. You're cutting out.
Hello.
How you doing?
Hello.
Yeah, yeah, gotcha.
Can you hear me?
Yep, gotcha.
Hello.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm 16 years old. I'm from India, and I'm following you from 2 months. Since 2 months,
Mm-hmm.
I'm trying to talk with you. So, what is the piece of advice you can give me? Means like, what are the skills I can learn? And means like, can you give me that guidance?
Mm. So, well, with the skills to learn, bro, I'd pick a high income skill. So I'd go and pick a high income skill. So sales and marketing are the two that I chose for my own reasons. They'd be the two that I'd recommend because that's the way I went. But there's, video editing, copywriting. So pick a skill first and then focus on that skill. Don't worry about, trying to find a million different ways what's going to make you money the quickest. Pick a high income skill and perfect that, and go from there.
Okay, thanks. Thanks.
How do I turn the drawing off?
Thanks a lot.
All good, all good. Unlock chat. All right, hang on, hang on. Give me a sec. Everyone, there you go. Pierce, go for it, bro. Oh, fuck. Sorry. There we go.
Yeah, hello.
How you doing, bro?
Yeah, good and you?
I'm good, bro. I'm good.
I was just wondering, like, would you guide us through this? So just say if I'm going to take onto this course and you're talking about like the high income skill,
Mm.
about like appointment setting and remote closing,
Yep.
would you give us links to that?
Links.
Yeah.
I'm unsure. I'm not 100% sure what you mean, man.
Uh, like I didn't even know how to say it, like help or guide us into that sort of experience of work.
Yeah, bro. 100%. So, yeah, 100%. So what I'm gonna do, man, is I'm gonna be running these sessions every week with you guys.
Yep.
I'm gonna ask you guys like all give me feedback. I'm gonna actually can everyone in the chat put down their Instagram at like their Instagram handle. Um, I'm gonna reach out to all you guys after this, and you guys can give me your feedback, what you want to see next, and we're gonna do these sessions every week. Does that sound good, bro? Does that sort of answer your question? We're gonna do this
Yeah, yeah, it does. Thank you so much.
for the most common one every week. We will go from there. So Jay, I believe you have a question. There you are. I've asked you. Yeah, you go. How you
All
doing?
right, good. Hey, can you hear me?
Yeah, gotcha, bro. Gotcha.
Um, kind of kind of just answer my question from that last guy, but
Yep.
yeah, like so you're someone we can come to for advice or
Yeah,
anything like that. Is that right?
100%, bro. 100%, bro. Any questions or anything like that, you can always come to me. So yeah, I'm going to be hosting these calls. I'm going to be hosting these calls. Yeah, every week, every 2 weeks. I'm going to try to push for every week. And yeah, well, obviously, hopefully, all you guys have taken value out of today's call, and you want to come back. And yeah, we can work towards try to build this skill set for all of you.
Okay, cool. Also, would there be like a set night or anything like? Would it be like every Thursday or something like that for us to
Yep,
be able
yep.
to?
Yeah. So what obviously this is just like the first one. What I might do tomorrow is I'll put on my story like a poll for like Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. What suits everyone the best, and then we'll just go with that every week. Does that sound good?
Oh, okay, yeah, that's
Yeah.
good.
Yeah.
Um,
Sweet.
I have another question. Um, so I'm only 16. Um, it would probably be harder for someone a bit younger to do it?
Uh,
Like, as for the, I guess when you get to the calling stage, I
yeah.
mean, I might be 17, but like, is there any way that would stop me from doing that?
I wouldn't say so, bro. Like if it's really just comes down to like how hungry you are, bro. If you're hungry for it, anyone can do it. I truly believe that. Like there's 16, 17-year-olds in the academy I'm a part of who are killing it, man. So, if you learn like that's another thing as well, is like a lot of people like you can say like drop shipping and stuff like that is oversaturated. But when you learn a skill, bro, if you're better than someone else, regardless of your age, regardless of your gender, regardless of anything, you always get picked off someone else because it's a skill. Does that make
Yeah,
sense?
yeah. Okay. Yeah,
Sweet.
good. Okay. Yeah, that's all. Thank you very much.
No worries, bro. No worries. We've got a question for Kay. Yep. Just unmute. I just asked you to unmute Kay or Key.
Carla, sorry. Can you hear me?
Yep, gotcha.
Okay, thanks. So you were talking about how before you were going into marketing that you weren't very good with talking with people.
Hmm.
When you were doing appointment settings, did you get the skills while doing appointment settings, or was there something you were doing before that?
Sorry, what did you say? What was the last thing?
Like were you to strengthen your like
Hmm.
communication,
Hmm.
were you doing something before appointment setting?
Yeah, so basically the way that I strengthened the communication was like learning the skill. But what we do inside the academy, what like my mentors run is these things called role plays. So basically, a role play is say you were wanting to become an appointment setter. Okay, what? How do I say it? Sorry,
Yeah,
how do I say your name? Sorry.
it's Kia.
Yeah. All right. So say you were wanting to become an appointment setter. Here, what we
Mm-hmm.
do is, once you've gone through a bit of training and you sort of understand the skill, you then do a role play with me where basically you're just practicing the skill. It's not like a real life, you're not going to make money from it, but you're just putting into practice what you're learning. So that's like sort of how I began to develop a skill set of communication, doing it with closing as well. So doing practice sales calls with other people in the community and then getting feedback. And, obviously, like anything, like when you just start a new job, you're pretty, you don't really know what's going on. After a year in that job, you start to get better with just repetitions. So I'd suggest trying to like find people who are like-minded and yeah, starting to do role plays and like practice what you're learning.
Would like in a week's time, would that be a class? Like, would that be a possibility?
Yeah. So yeah, I'll get feedback from all of you after this, and yeah, we can obviously plan something like that out. 100%.
Okay, thank you.
Wait, all good, all good. Does anyone else have any more questions? There's a few in the. I have an appointment. Anyone else? What are some common misconceptions people have about this space before they dive into it? Misconceptions. I think like the biggest one is like it's too good to be true, or it's everything you see is bullshit because there is a lot of people who say or where it is bullshit, you know, that they're, I guess, like trying to sell a dream or something. Biggest misconception is like people will like have a bad experience somewhere else and then be like, nah, I'm never doing it again. It's all bullshit. It's all a load of shit. So like the best like analogy I could put to that is like, you know, say you get cheated on by a girl or a boy, say you get cheated on in a relationship. Does that mean you're never, nah, I'm never ever going to be in another relationship? You know, I've had one bad experience, that's it. So I think that's probably like one of the biggest misconceptions is people will hear one thing or see another or something will happen to them. And then it's just like everyone like posting videos, everyone trying to do something online is just out to take people's money. So I think that's probably one of the biggest misconceptions people have before they dive into it. What made you choose what made you choose ABC over other digital businesses? So the reason I chose ABC, man, was like I said earlier, was really the results to back it. So not only, you know, like the mentors that I have inside there, bro, they've been in sales for like over a decade. So obviously they've got that skill set. They've been there and done it themselves. But the two other things were the results that so obviously they've got themselves to a certain position, but also they've got other people there. So obviously the training works because there's lots of successful people out there, but then can they actually train people to replicate the success? So like I showed before, there was the results there to back it of not only just results there to back it, but people who are in a pretty similar spot to me. So tradies and things like that. So that was the first thing, seeing results and being like, well, if they're just following the path that the mentors are guiding them down, why can't I do the same? So that was the first thing was the amount of results coming out of ABC. And the other thing was the people that they've actually worked with and like the connections you can get working in the space. So obviously another hard thing people will find when they don't have, I guess, a community or something around them is being able to connect and network with people in the space. So, you know, I showed Nathan Nazareth there. That's just one example of someone ABC has run the sales force. So someone with, you know, like someone with over 900,000 followers on Instagram, and they helped. Not only did they work with him, they helped him go from $30,000 a month to $400,000 a month, which is ridiculous. But it was a number of things. Just doing my research, seeing more and more results, seeing more and more stuff like that. That pretty much got me over the line. Going like, at that point when I saw everything I needed to everything I've when I saw everything I needed to, it just came down to a point for me where I was like, well, it's only going to be me stopping myself from achieving my goals. It's worked for other people, they've worked for big people. So the only thing really stopping me is me putting in the work. And that's where that consistency comes in. If you just be consistent, you can't really fail unless you give up. I've worked real estate and have my own landscaping business. Definitely fortunate enough to have it start. 100%, bro. That's good to hear. But yeah, we might wrap it up there. I'm just going to get a photo of all these ats. But sort of rounding off, if you have any questions or you know you're wanting that extra guidance, or for like because I'm going to post this on YouTube as well for um, anyone who's watching this back on YouTube. If you want to book a call in with the academy, if you're interested in getting that extra guidance similar to what I got, the only reason I'm really here today is because I got that guidance. So if you're interested in having a chat more in depth about like the process with that, let me know. You can just send me a DM me like DM me the word skills. So yeah, we'll leave it there. I'm gonna hit all you guys up for feedback. And yeah, if you can shoot me if this was of value, let me know. So I can put some results on my story just to hopefully it was of value. I hope it was. And yeah, we'll get some feedback. We'll plan out next week's one. And yeah, we'll go from there. I appreciate you all for being here. And yeah, all good, Brendan. All right, thank you guys. I appreciate it. And yeah, if you haven't already, I would appreciate if you could chuck it on your story just to, you know, show people, you know, I guess show more people the opportunity that's out there too. Because, you know, as I said before, a lot of people just think, you know, the whole online space is a bunch of bullshit. But, you know, when you look at the facts, there's so much there. So if I'd appreciate if you chuck it in your story, tag me, DM me the word skills if you want more info on, yeah, sort of the journey I went down. But yeah, I'll get feedback from all of you and I appreciate it. Yeah, have a good night, guys. Appreciate it.